Thank you, Jeff. I always know that I'm in a UU church when a song is being sung and at least half the people are reading the lyrics, because it's a very literate group. I believe in the importance of developing beliefs, principles, and priorities. I believe the development of beliefs, principles, and priorities is very important for individuals, for families, for congregations, for society. I believe that we live in a time where there are so many influences impinging upon the individual, demanding and clamoring for their attention and their devotion, that people are lost and don't understand that as a human being, one of their fundamental tasks is to discover for themselves what is true and real and meaningful for them. What are their beliefs? What are their principles? What are their priorities? And that doing so is what it means to be a person, a self in the world. Let me share with you what I mean by belief, principles, and priorities. A belief is a general statement about life that announces what one believes. Chrissy did a beautiful job of talking about the UU model for doing that, being open to everything. An example is, I believe that all life is interdependent. That's a belief. Another belief was spoken by Jeff this morning in the first song. The greatest thing you will ever learn is to love and to be loved in return. That's a belief. And I think both of those statements are beliefs that we can all say, yes, I believe that. But it's very valuable to know what we believe. A principle, which I wanted to focus on today, is a rule governing one's behavior on a daily basis. An example would be, I will treat others as I wish to be treated. And that would be an operational principle, something by which one tried to live by. A priority is a ranking of what is most important to us. An example would be, my family is my highest priority. And a priority is another word of talking about values, what one values. Beliefs, principles, priorities are distinct, but they are related and intertwined. Our beliefs affect our principles, our priorities affect our principles, and so on. No two people have the same answer to the question, what do I believe? What are my principles? What are my priorities? One of the things I learned in my practice over the years in psychotherapy is that individuals inevitably must come up with their own answers to the vital questions of life. And no two people are the same in that way. And one of the geniuses of our religious faith is that we acknowledge the reality that people are different and that their beliefs and principles and priorities will be, although overlapping in many ways, different. But we can all have common ground in understanding the importance of cultivating personal beliefs, principles, and priorities. And we believe with an abiding faith that it is okay if we are diverse in our beliefs, that we will be able to find a way to work together, to be a community in spite of our differences. Now, here's the interesting point. Many people who have found their way to a Unitarian Universalist congregation have come out of an experience that was negative or problematic. I have known people who have left a Catholic or Protestant tradition and have been very hurt by that, or they felt like their life was upset by that. They had felt like they were forced to believe something that they did not. And perhaps they could have been a person who was gay or lesbian and their sexuality was not acknowledged because the religious belief system did not permit that, or they were simply uncomfortable with the rigidity of the dogma that they experienced in the other churches. So many people who come to this type of congregation do so with, how shall I say this, an allergy towards dogma and beliefs, etc. And so when I mention the word belief, it sends shivers through some people, right? Because it's hard for us to get out of our minds that when I say belief, I'm not talking about a belief imposed on you. I'm talking about a belief that wells from within yourself and that is true and genuine for you. And so I am arguing the case, if you will. My father always wanted me to be a lawyer, so here I go. I'm arguing the case that the thing that was so distorted in our experience by many of us, the thing that we see misused and distorted right now in society at large, is an understanding of belief that is false and wrong, and that we as UUs need to reclaim the power and significance of what we believe in. If we do not have a clear idea of what we believe and why we believe it and what our principles are and why they are our principles, then someone will fill that void. And I must say one other thing, that for many UU churches, this whole issue of trying to figure out what we believe is just is suspended, and what we emphasize is the fellowship, which is wonderful because that's key and essential to human existence and to our happiness, and the fellowship is great and vivifying and very needed, but we tend, I think, as a religious movement to overemphasize just the fact that we can have so many friends by being here, and we de-emphasize or we let go or we ignore the importance and power of cultivating beliefs and principles. So I wanted to talk about the subject of principles specifically, and I wanted to do that by talking about my own principles, to give you an idea of what I mean by a principle and how it functions in my life and how I try to use it in my life and how I try to reinforce its use in my life. So I wanted to share some of them with you. I have a total of 29 principles. I'm not going to share all of those. And I'll tell you why I have 29 in just a moment. But I'm going to share far fewer than that. Don't be worried. These have been cultivated over a period of about 15 years, where I was intensely involved in cultivating them and then backed off a little bit. I try to go over them and revise them every year in December, as I did this year as well. But here are some of my principles by which I try to have my life guided. Be the first one, be grateful as often as possible and as deeply as possible for as many things as possible. Number 2, act responsibly even when other people act irresponsibly. 3, create win-win solutions. Number 4, always take full responsibility for your words, actions, and reactions. The next one, be kind to everyone, for each person carries a hidden burden. The next one, focus on facts rather than assumptions, imagination, fantasy, or emotionally driven thinking. The next one, be present, empathetic, and responsive to, but not responsible for, others. The next one, focus all your attention and actions only on what is within your control and within your responsibilities. The next one, ask the question, who am I trying to please right now and why? The next one, when you suffer setbacks or difficulties, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And then ask yourself, how can I apply what I have learned to my future actions? The next one, focus only on your highest priorities in alignment with your principles. The next one, whenever there is turmoil in your relationship network, and that happens a lot in UU churches, by the way. Whenever there is turmoil in your relationship network, ask, what is my contribution to this? And then change that in oneself and re-enter the relationship system with this changed mindset. So I'll spare you no more, but that's kind of a sample. So I have 29, and I have 29 because it corresponds with the number, approximately, of the number of days in the month. And so I have written each of those principles on a 3x5 card, and I put a different one in my pocket every morning, and I refer to it throughout the day. And if I remind myself about my principles, I may be able to accomplish following my principles about 30% of the time. Because realistically, if we are able to practice our principles 30 or 35% of the time, we are way ahead of the game. Because the reality is, at any given moment, we are affected by our moods, our emotions, how much sleep we had the night before, what we ate, the anxiety level of people around us, the things happening in society, the things happening with our children, our grandchildren, or loved ones. And the fact is, a principle, because all of these dynamics, because of the turbulence of human life, principles are like a candle in the wind. But let us be clear, if we do not know by our own powers and self-direction, our own principles, beliefs, and priorities, someone is going to create them for us. We live in a country right now, I will just say as an aside, where tens of millions of people are just adopting ideas that are crazy, that they've read on the internet or whatever. They have no self-direction whatsoever. It is a dangerous situation, but I digress. I would like to see our congregations to be places where people are supported and guided to develop their own belief systems. This is really important. And I ask you, where else in society are we allowed and encouraged or would be supported to do this if not a Unitarian Universalist church? But people need to be supported in that effort. I believe UU congregations need to do more to make that happen. It is for this reason that I am recommending, or I will recommend to the board in our next budget, that our DRE, Chrissy, that her position be expanded to full-time so that she can support adult education as well as children and youth education. You like that? Okay, support it when the budget comes along. I really think this is something that many UU churches could do much more about. I also think that we, the UU churches, are one of the only institutions in society which can actively help people develop their beliefs, principles, and priorities in line with what the individual thinks is true and real and genuine. Well, I end my sermon actually with a question rather than an answer, and that is, how do you think this congregation should respond to the challenge of the idea of helping everyone here develop their own beliefs and principles? Thank you.